Another day that goes by, another pro day that Ryan Poles shows up at. Ryan Poles shows up at Alabama's pro day, and we're going to talk about the players that he could be taking a look at and focusing on in that pro day and what it means for the Chicago Bears draft plans. Also going to look at the best day two defensive edge prospects for the Bears in the 2026 draft, and Tyson Bagent actually talks and responds to the trade talks around his name. We're talking about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And the NFL draft is next month, and the Chicago Bears are doing everything they can to prepare for it. We've basically told you guys free agency is basically over for the Chicago Bears as far as kind of marquee moves in that for the Chicago Bears, and that's perfectly fine because the Bears are gearing up and they are focusing on the NFL draft in a heavy way. And we'll see what they come out with. But to do that preparation for the NFL draft, it means that you have to scout. You have to show up for these pro days. You have to scout. You have to sit down. You have to set up top 30 visits. And we've been tracking that this whole way through for the Chicago Bears on this channel. And the Chicago Bears actually showed up at another pro day. They showed up at Alabama's pro day, and there are a number of prospects that make sense for the Chicago Bears to look at this pro day. And when you look at it, the names that kind of stand out that could matter for the Chicago Bears are offensive tackle Caden Proctor, defensive end LT Overland, who we've actually talked a lot about on the show before. LT Overland is 6'5", 278 pounds. He had 4 sacks last season. For that, he had 7 sacks over 4 years playing in college, 2 at Texas A&M, 2 at Alabama. 6 of those sacks came during his time in Alabama as well. He had a pass deflected each of those 2 years with Alabama. This is a big guy that can play that defensive tackle role. He can play some edge as well, but mainly probably defensive tackle is where you're looking at him for. And he's a big body that Dennis Allen likes in his defensive schemes and likes on his defensive line. But that's not it. Also, linebacker Deontay Lawson and wide receiver Journey Bernard stand out for the Chicago Bears. There's also a center in Alabama, Parker Brailsford as well, that the Bears could take a look at if they go down the pathway. You guys know I've talked about Coogan. It's a guy that I really like there. But when you look at the wide receiver prospect, Jeremy Bernard here with the Alabama Crimson Tide, 6'1", 204 pounds. He had 7 touchdowns last year, 862 yards on 64 receptions. That's an average of 13.5 yards per reception. He averaged 14.2 yards per reception over his collegiate career, which spanned 4 years. He played a season at MSU, a season at Wash, and then 2 seasons at Alabama as well. He had 7 touchdowns last year, 6 total touchdowns his other 3 years combined, so 2 each of those years for 13 total touchdowns over the course of his collegiate career. This is a guy, especially when you look at the scheme thing with Ben Johnson, and we're kind of, when you look at wide receiver prospects for the Bears, what you kind of want to focus on are wide receivers that can line up on the inside or outside. That's part of the versatility that Ben Johnson likes having with the wide receivers that we have here. Is that, you can line up Luther Burden at the slot. You can put him on the outside. You can line up Colston Loveland in the slot, have other guys outside. So that versatility is something that I do think they're going to want to maintain and keep if with the Chicago Bears, even with DJ Moore's exit. So it opens up a pathway to that. So Alabama joins the another school that has multiple prospects that all make sense for the Chicago Bears. And you can try to figure out your way through which one makes the most sense. The linebacker, Deontay Lawson as well that I mentioned. 6'2", 228 pounds. Last year, he had 80 tackles for Alabama. Now, he played all 4 years in Alabama, 274 tackles over 4 years, 80 just last year, 76 the year before that. He had 4 passes deflected in each of his seasons, so a total of 16 passes deflected over the course of his career in Alabama, and 6.5 sacks, 1.5 coming last year, 3 forced fumbles, 1 interception. That is his career statistics there at Alabama. This is another guy that I could definitely see Dennis Allen being interested in on the defensive side of the ball. And we've seen really Ryan Poles not just focus on schools that have one prospect that they can be interested in. It's a number of prospects at almost every pro day Ryan Poles has been at lately that makes sense for the Chicago Bears. And so That's really good. And you want to continue to see that. Now, there was a clip that came out as well at Alabama's Pro Day where Ryan Poles took a heavy leaning towards the offensive line drills there, right? Guys like Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford, who I mentioned, the center there. And so when you look at Proctor, he allowed 19 total pressures, 4 QB hits, and 2 sacks in 527 pass blocking snaps, and was a consensus All-American and first-team All-SEC selection last year as well. He was third-team All-SEC in 2025 and second-team All-Pac-12 in 2023 when he played for Washington. So when it comes to it, it looks like Ryan Poles is also looking heavily at Alabama's offensive line, which makes some sense. Like, they're in a interesting situation with the offensive line, with, of course, Ozzie Trapillo hurt. So you need to find somebody that can stand in for that. Now, they brought in Jedrick Willis. They re-signed Braxton Jones. We actually got some quotes on Braxton Jones and why he returned to the Chicago Bears. We'll talk a little bit about that. But the Bears do need depth, if nothing else, at the offensive line, and young depth. They have so many veterans and well-paid veterans, especially with Darnell Wright about to get his extension soon. And so having those cost-effective rookies as the depth and actually as the developmental pieces as well for the Chicago Bears offensive line all makes some sense. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, Proctor's probably going to be a first-round selection. So if they do draft him, I don't know what that means for how they view Ozzie Trapillo, or if they may be concerned with long-term effects on Ozzie Trapillo's injury, so they want to get another guy that can be a long-term starter there and have a position battle. I don't know, but it'll be an interesting position to take in the first round. And I don't know if the Bears are quite equipped to do that. I have my theory that they'll go safety in the first round, or they'll do something that surprises all, like draft an offensive lineman. So, we'll see. There's no first round center prospects really in this draft. And so you would be drafting a different position. And, we'll see what that ends up happening out to. So overall, that's Alabama's Pro Day. That's where it makes sense for Ryan Poles at. And we'll see what comes out of that for Ryan Poles. It could be none of these guys. It could be all of these guys. What it comes down to right now is Ryan Poles is doing the precursor work on the draft. This is where you want Ryan Poles at. You want him showing up to pro days. You want him looking at prospects. You want him doing all those type of things, taking top 30 visits, and we'll see, right? But I do want to talk about day 2 edge prospects for the Chicago Bears next, right? Because there's been a lot made over who the Bears could draft first in the draft. And you guys know, like me, I kind of think that the Bears may go safety just because the safety prospects later in the draft aren't as strong as the edge and defensive tackle prospects in the second round of this draft. But that's not to say that the Bears can't be counted out of drafting the edge round 1. I do think if Cassius Howell somehow is in a position where the Bears can trade up for him, they may very well do that, because he would fit extremely well in Dennis Allen's defense, and that's kind of the guy that we all know is definitely going to go in the first round. They may have to trade up to get him, though, if they want to do it in the first round. So they may have to settle for day 2, right? And I want to talk about these day 2 prospects. One guy that I've talked already heavily about on the show a few times, so I'm not going to spend as much time, but that's Gabe Jacobs out of Illinois. 6'3", 275 pounds, 11 sacks last year, 8 the sacks the year before that. He had 27 sacks over the course of his 4-year career in college, 184 tackles, 98 of those being solo, 2 passes deflected, 7 forced fumbles in 4 years as well. When you look at productivity, there's no doubt about it, this guy brings it. He brings the size that Dennis Allen's like, a nice combination of size and speed as well. He could be somebody that if eventually you do have to move on, but hey, Gabe Jacobs, Montez Sweat, Austin Booker is kind of your main 3 edges in a rotation. Could be really great for the Chicago Bears. That weight that he has, the physicality that he brings. This guy is what has been labeled a violent edge rusher, and he's there available on day 2 more than likely, unless somebody reaches for him at the end of the first round. The physical, the anchor that he has, all those type of things, that's something that you love for it. He played 50 career games. And this is a guy that's probably about as ready as anybody, NFL ready as anybody that you're going to get in the second round of this one. And we'll see what happens there. It has a nice amount of moves. And so there's some that he lacks in quickness, but the footwork that he has and the hand technique, all those type of things, those are things that the Bears can definitely work with. And I can see Dennis Allen loving. The next guy in round 2 that I think would be a great pickup for the Chicago Bears as well is Malachi Lawrence. Now, this guy's senior, 6'4", 250 pounds out of, he was played in high school in Louisville. He played for the UFC Knights. So one of those, schools that are a little bit smaller, right? When you look at it, productivity is the name of the game for him. His freshman year, he had a half a sack. Other than that, he had 7.5 sacks his sophomore year, 5 sacks his junior year, 7 sacks his senior year, 20 sacks over the course of his career in college, 3 forced fumbles, 4 passes deflected as well. productivity, size, a lot of what Dennis Allen likes in that as well. He brings that. And the thing when you come down to it, when you look at his game, he's explosive. He has a motor that just never stops at all. He explodes off the line of scrimmage. He finishes plays well. He doesn't really miss tackles, which is really good. I think when you look at somebody who can close in on mobile quarterbacks as well, which is what we know a lot of the quarterbacks in the league it's there. He's a guy that you can't leave him unguarded. And so it'll make teams have to think about where they want to double team Montez Sweat and things like that in. I think he can come in right away and compete for a starting spot as well. Malachi Lawrence out of UCF, do not overlook him. He's a big name in on day 2 as well. And then the last guy I want to talk about, Romilio Height out of Texas Tech. Let's talk about him, right? This is a guy that I think may end up going actually in round 3. And so if the Bears want to, if they even do go defensive end in round 2 or something like that, they can go another double dip and get him again. But this guy could be taken in the top 60. I wouldn't be surprised if he does drop to round 3, early in round 3. He had 10 sacks last year, 2 forced fumbles. Senior, 6'3", 235 pounds as well. Coming from Texas Tech, he's dealt with some really good offensive lines. He only played 1 season. The thing that a little bit may be concerning, and the Bears look into this stuff, he played at 4 different colleges over the 4 years in college, which is some concern. Other than the 10 sack season last year, the most sacks he ever had was his sophomore year at 4. Even his junior year, he only had 2.5. But this is a guy that hasn't played as many snaps as the other guys. And so if the Bears are looking for maybe an uncovered gem in the draft, this guy could be it, right? So he's a little bit undersized as well, right? But it's very similar to kind of Austin Booker in that way. But I think when you look at him, he's just a smooth guy. He doesn't have the force that Jacobs or Lawrence or those guys have. But this guy he's relentless in his pursuit. He definitely, that can make him a day 2 guy as well. He just has the motor that you look like in productivity. The question is, though, can Romilio come in and actually turn into a starting, or is he going to be depth? Now, if you think that Austin Booker is going to be your starter there, then maybe no problem. You have a really good guy with high motor as a depth guy behind those 2 guys, and that could be solid enough for you. But I think we all know that the Bears are probably going to take a swing at a starting caliber edge in this draft. So that's why I say if they do draft him, I think he would be complementary to an earlier defensive line move that the Chicago Bears make, in my personal opinion. But those are kind of, I think, the 3 best edges that could be there on day 2 for the Chicago Bears. And we just got to see what they're going to do with it other than that. All right, now I want to move on from that to talking about Tyson Bagent and his comments on the rumors surrounding him in the NFL and potentially being traded, right? He was asked by Mark Carman and Greg Braggs on CHGO, and he said this. You, along with a couple of other people, informed me during my family vacation time in Miami all of the stuff that was going on. I would say all of that noise during the combine was not necessarily expected, but as far as the NFL thing has been, you can't expect, everything's unexpected. It was nice to hear my bosses talk about me that way, but as far as my thoughts behind it, the only thing I need to do is stay ready. And for right now, it seems to be the best quarterback for the Bears for another season. So seems like Tyson Bagent is not allowing the rumors and stuff to get to him, which is really good. You don't want that to get to any player. You want players to be able to block out the noise and focus on what they need to focus on. Now, the question comes down to, I think, just what are the Bears going to get for it? Now, the last time me and all the guys were together, we talked a little bit about this, and I did say to them, like, I think the Tyson Bagent thing may be something that happens during the draft. Maybe the day or two before, right, as teams kind of finally settle in on getting all their intel and positioning and ready for the draft. But I do think that if Tyson Bagent is moved, it may not happen until during the NFL draft. And that may come down to what is on the board, what other teams want to do, where they strike out at quarterbacks that are on their depth chart as well that they think can come in and help right away. Those type of things may matter and play a huge part into whether Tyson Bagent is moved or not. Now, with him being on the last year of his deal, it's going to make sense for him for the Bears to go ahead and move on from him. And that's just the reality of the business part of football, right? You can't overlook that. That is the business aspect of the game of football. You're going to lose people. You're going to have to send people away. You're going to have to move off of people. That's what football is about, right? Now, the question comes down to it is, what do they get back for Tyson Bagent? That's one of the huge questions here, right? What can they get back for Tyson Bagent? And that's not to say that you need to be trying to get some huge deal back for Tyson Bagent or anything like that. That's not what I mean by that. That's not what I'm trying to say. I think at this point, because of where Tyson Bagent is with his contract, where the Bears are with their quarterback position, you just take the best deal available. Like, if you can get a 3rd-round pick for Tyson Bagent. That's great. I'll go on to say that some of the depth as well in this draft, if you get a 4th-round pick for Tyson Bagent, it's solid value. Now, a 3rd-round pick would be great value. 4th-round pick would be solid value. But either way, it just comes down to trying to get value out of what you're moving on from in Tyson Bagent. If you get that value, great. And that's what it comes down to. So we'll see what happens with Tyson Bagent. He seems to have the right mindset about it, which is the most important thing. Doesn't seem like it's going to be a distraction for the team at all. And we'll see what the Bears come away with. But I want to throw this one to you guys. When you look at the Tyson Bagent situation, what do you think the Bears' asking price should be for Tyson Bagent? What do you think a realistic asking price is for it? What do you think they can get back? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Last topic of the day before we get out of here, Braxton Jones talked a little bit about staying with the Chicago Bears and what that means for this team, right? And he said this. Early on, there were talks at the Combine about possibly signing somewhere else. But when it came down to it, the Bears in the situation that we have here are the best for myself. I'm not choosing comfortability, but knowing I've been here for the last 4 years, putting that all into a picture kind of made the decision itself. Being able to re-sign with the Bears for another year and just the opportunity that is presented is amazing. I'm extremely grateful. I'm excited to show that I can go out and be full go. I take that as this, right? Braxton Jones knows this is probably his last opportunity to really go out in the free agent market next season because he only signed a 1-year deal, $5 million guaranteed. It can get up to $10 million. But he can go back into the free agent market next season and hopefully be building off a season where he was productive and stood up for a team that needed. Now, they brought in competition for him in Jedrick Willis. I would not be surprised if Jedrick wins the position. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in somebody else, and we still don't know what's going on with Theo Benedict, right? But Braxton has an opportunity now. And that's really kind of the thing. You got an opportunity, and now you can try to make the most of it and capitalize off that next offseason by making more money if that ends up being the case. But for Braxton, I think for a lot of Bears fans that all share the same thing, the optimism around Braxton is extremely slowed down, and it has to be. Now, he still has his fans in the Chicago Bears fan base. Like, there are still people that make a case that Braxton Jones is good. And I say this, like, Braxton Jones is good to a degree. It's just that you have to ask yourself, how much do his flaws, which are big flaws and not being able to handle the bull rush, he's gotten the penalties largely together, but how much does that hold your overall offensive line back? And that's what the Bears answered last season, and they found out we're going to go Theo Benedict and eventually Ozzie Trapillo. That's the better option for us. Now Braxton has a chance to show, has he worked on anything? The knock that I've always given to Braxton is he's basically the same player that he's been since he came in the NFL. And take that for what you will. There's good enough to say that there's a floor there, and the floor is decent, right? I think, swing tackle at worst. If you have him on an overall great offensive line, maybe he doesn't stick out as much, right? But even then, that kind of happened last year for the Chicago Bears. So, I said this before with a different player, and I'll say it again. Every player faces a situation where their NFL mortality gets very loud, right? And it's something that's very clear for them. And I think that's where Braxton sits at right now, is that mortality of playing in the NFL has gotten very real for him. Now, his career isn't nearly done. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Braxton Jones is still going to be a guy that gets opportunities on NFL rosters for at least another 2 or 3 years after the season, no matter how it goes, because that potential is there. But if you really want to be a starter and to show that you can continue to start here, the Bears offer an opportunity where Ozzie Trapillo's down. There's going to be open play there for the left tackle. Can you come in here? Can you do something? Can you walk away with it? And can you perform decently? That is the question that people are going to be asking and looking for in Braxton Jones this season. And we'll see if he can bring it. For what it's worth, it seems like, again, people understand that being here in Chicago can help them. And that is a good thing, because that's not always how we've been looked at, right? That's not always how we've held ourselves. That's not always how we've performed as an organization. But it does seem like players that have signed here and players that have re-signed here realize there's an opportunity here in Chicago to do something. Can we do it? That becomes the question about it, and we'll see if they can. I understand people who have their hopes. I understand people who don't believe in it. I understand all of it. And we'll see what the Chicago Bears end up doing with it overall, but, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But shout out to Braxton, coming back. Braxton also could be traded, at some point this season, which maybe the Bears also looked at and giving him that 1-year deal. Jedrick Willis does look good and takes over that starting position. If you feel confident in Theo Benedict to back him up, maybe you trade Braxton Jones at some point, before the trade deadline, and the team, wants the opportunity to look at him in their system before the season ends to decide if they want to re-sign him. So you have those kind of things that are options in there for the Bears. We'll see if they can take advantage of it. But that's going to do it for today's episode, y'all. I appreciate you guys so much, man. We'll see what happens. The Bears are making sure that they have options going into the NFL draft. That's where it all begins, is having options and then making the right choices from those options. So I'm going to ask you guys and throw you this. What's the right move, do you think, for the Chicago Bears as far as edge? Do you like any of the edges that I mentioned today? Or there's something that you like better? What do you think we're going to get back for Tyson Bagent? Let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell if you never want to miss an episode. And you guys can follow us at Chi Bears Central. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.